Amazing. My heart is so full. Okay, so guiding light. I want to talk a little bit about worthiness today and our relationships with other people and all that jazz. I know, big topic, right? So I've had several sessions this week where this theme has come up, and it's really like this: people recognizing the patterns of their prior relationships and then internalizing some shame around what they're noticing when they do the look back, right? Hindsight's 2020 type of thing. So I'll give you a little more clear examples of that. One person is saying things about, I had between the last session and now this experience where I was feeling angry and embarrassed and disappointed. And the like embarrassment and disappointment is a reflection of this internalized energy around this thought that she is having, recognizing I from the jump was misaligned with this individual. And the language that she used there was like we were in very different leagues, and I know that language of like I'm out of their league sounds a bit diminishing, and I'm going to reframe that so that the language I use isn't coming from like a place of diminishing or devaluing, but more so just coming from a place of speaking truth and honoring what the resonance and what the pattern is, right? So what this person is saying is essentially I'm trying to think of where I want to go with that. I think it's more so this is what she's bringing to the table. This is what she's noticing is I feel bad about myself and embarrassed and like disappointed in myself when I realized that I dated this person. And not only that, but I chose to stay in this dishonoring relationship that was unmatched for such a longer time, such an amount of time, right? And that's making me not feel good about myself. And so I'm saying, okay, let's get to that. The anger that she felt with this certain type of exchange that happened that felt like it was an attempt to make her not feel good, right? It's like, okay, rightful anger is rightful anger, and we don't need to process and touch on that very much more other than to normalize and talk about how you processed and moved through that in a way that maintained your own dignity, respect, and alignment, and allowed you to depersonalize and protect yourself from the attack, right? But the underlying feelings of the embarrassment and the disappointment, ooh, that's the golden nugget for me as your therapist that I want to talk about more, because those are indicators of the heart of the matter connected to relationship to self, right? The embarrassment, shame, disappointment in myself. This is the work we're doing together, relationship to self. Um, so tell me more about that embarrassment and what you're thinking that's connected to the feeling of the embarrassment. And this is, I am upset with myself, and I have confusion around when I look back and see the relationships and the not just this one, but the pattern. When I see this pattern of I've dated people who have this similarity of the kind of devaluing and the mistreatment that I've been on the receiving end, and then noticing I've been in those relationships for longer than I should have, it makes me feel a bit shameful and embarrassed. Like there's something internalizing there, right? Not only did this person mistreat me, but I'm embarrassed about being mistreated, right? I'm saying it that way with emphasis so that you can feel how unfair that almost is that we have that happening for ourselves. This is like, why do we do that? Why do we do that? Why do we feel like somebody mistreated me and it's my fault that they mistreated me? That's really some of the undertones of that. And we know when we hear it that way that it's like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. And, if my best girlfriend or sister is telling me, like, I feel bad about myself for being in that relationship, like, why didn't I see that? Why didn't I do something sooner about it? And, you would say all the things, but we do that. We internalize that. And here's what I noted in session for this person is look at the last 6 months where you were when you first came for your intake with me and where you are now about 6 months later and what has changed. Self-worth is incredibly different now than it was when she first started seeing me, and she knows it. She's not, I think my self-worth is better. She's like, oh, I'm definitely at a different place. I'm like, you definitely are. I can see that. I can feel it. We can taste it, right? You're at a different place with that, and it's beautiful. And as you're noticing you're at a different place with it, that's what's giving you the ability to do the look back. You're transforming, your life has transformed, things around you have shifted. And those are all manifestations or external expressions of the internal changes that have been happening for this person, right? Which is beautiful. So we're putting big hearts around that and acknowledging when you're in transformation, there may be some confusion. Transformation is beautiful. Look at this. Like, you are feeling so much differently about yourself from the inside out, and your life is starting to transform to show that beautiful thing. Confusion can be a part of that because you are still transforming. You're not fully done with that process. There's a blossoming and an unfolding happening. And so she's getting ahead of herself a little bit in some ways when she is still in the bud of the flower and hasn't blossomed all the way yet, and is looking around saying, why am I in a bed of weeds? Why did I let myself be here? Right. And I'm starting to see myself a little bit differently than I did before. And I'm recognizing the things that are mismatched in my environment. And now I'm blaming myself for rooting into this soil next to these weeds, right? Is a piece of how that feels. And then there's a little fear that comes up with that too of, what is it about me? What is it about me that has attracted those relationships? And that makes me feel I can't trust myself. And I'm starting to drop into that scarcity and fear based spot of concern of repetition, right? If I look back and see my last 5 relationships looked similar to this, then that feels to me like there's a high probability that my next one is going to be similar to that. Apparently, I'm attracted to people of this nature, right? Is the underlying tone of that as well. So a lot of internalizing that shame and embarrassment, how this person showed up in the relationship with me and how they mistreated me is somehow a poor reflection on me. And, I do think there's pieces of that go way back to years and years of sexism and oppression within oppression, right? I think there's a saying about, you're at the maximum level of oppression when the oppressor can remove their hands from the equation. And there is internalized oppression within the group. And this is just like the symptoms of being oppressed keep you within the chains of oppression, if that makes sense. And how do we free ourselves from that? One is these conversations that we're having together, this noticing, why are these chains still on me? I've left that relationship. Oh, this is the internalizing of that. I'm blaming myself for being mistreated. Something about that doesn't feel quite right. Let's get to the root of that, and that'll loosen so we can set those chains down. So, energetically, I explained to her the confusion you're having about noticing that pattern and not wanting to repeat is you're transforming, and the new identity of who you deeply are at a soul level, and that internal sense of worthiness that we're noticing rising up, that doesn't match the identity and energy of the individual you were when you entered into those relationships. And so we have to have some sense of recognizing this newness and this deep worthiness and having trust in that to know magnetism and energy is real. I am in a different energy than I have ever been before. And can I trust that that is my North Star, my internal compass, that is going to shift things in my reality? I can't understand how to do differently or undo what happened in the past. And so I'm confused about how to prevent that from happening in the future. And I said, you're never going to get the clarity that you need or to understand it differently when you're trying to conceptualize it or rationalize it from a really cerebral and psychological type of place, because this is about energy. So, spiritually and energetically, the way I'll explain that is this. When you think about the ends of two magnets that are like a positive and negative and they attract or repel, in the past, the energy that you were coming to the table with was a very unhealed version of yourself that carried these trauma reenactments from early attachment and integrating your identity out of like childhood development. And so you were coming in with a charge on your magnet that was about, I'm here to prove myself and prove my worthiness. I am needing to prove myself and prove my worthiness, right? I have a need to do that, a magnetism to do that, because it's linked to inner child wounds of not feeling worthy enough and feeling that my sense of safety, security, well being, worthiness is built upon external validation and interpersonal relationships. So my magnet is I need to prove my worthiness. And so, what is the other magnet that's going to be pulling an attraction to that? One, energetically, a match of somebody who also feels unworthy. There's unworthiness on both sides, likely. But that unworthiness that gets attracted to somebody who has, I need to prove, is going to be an energy of prove to me, prove to me, prove to me, prove to me. Energy vampire drawing, right? You need to prove your worth. I'll let you prove your worth. Game on. Let's do it. Obviously, that doesn't end well, right? Toxic relationship, diminishing, undervalued kind of thing. And so there's a song that's about like two half full cups, which is actually like a pretty sweet, I like the melody, it's a nice song, but it is really like, I'm a half empty cup, you're a half empty cup. Let's get together and fill each other up. I know I'm not like coming to the table with a full cup and neither on you, but we'll do our best and whatever kind of thing. And I think that she's now moving forward with coming to the table with a full cup. And I'm seeing 1, 2, 3, 4 on the clock right now. And that's been coming up a lot lately for me personally, but I'm saying it for a reason because my attention's being drawn to it, which usually means at least a couple people who watch this will be starting to see that 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, which I have found is a lot about you're in transformation zone right now and healing. 1, 2, 3, 4, next steps, right? Boop, 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 boop. I'm thinking of as I do that, boop, 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 the Mario, when he eats a little mushroom and he grows like that, boop, 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 leveling up. So she's coming to the table in her next relationships with a full cup. And she wasn't before. The energy is different. You have a different magnetic pull. Energy is real. So I explained to her, when your energy is not the I need to prove myself, I need to prove myself, the relationships that come into your life are simply going to be different. You need to trust that. You don't need to use heavy energy of discernment. How do I notice when this person is this way or this way? Drop into your worthiness and who you deeply are, because that's the energy, right? The more you pull up into that cerebral place of analytics, that is going to drop you into the old energy of the proving self. And you're going to be more likely from that state to see repetitions. But if you drop back out of that and into yourself and feel the higher self energy of that worthiness vibrating, the changes you've felt that you have made, that I've seen you make, that is like palpable, of this enhanced sense of worthiness. Now you are a different person. You're a more truer to yourself version entering in a new relationship. You simply aren't going to have, like, you need to trust the way they say that every 7 years your taste buds change, right? And then it's like when I was a kid, I never liked onions, whether cooked or raw, right? And then you get older and you go like, I actually really like this. This tastes savory and delicious, right? The things, it's like, your trust that, like, your taste buds change, your attraction in a romantic relationship has changed because you've leveled up and you've done healing work. And so we're going to have some trust in that. It feels a little confusing right now because you're in between these versions of yourself and there's more healing to do. That bud hasn't fully blossomed yet, but as long as you can start to hold a little bit of what we're talking about right now, that helps to release some of the, like, oh yeah, instead of feeling embarrassment around this past, can I shift into feeling myself? I'm thinking of that song, I'm feeling myself, right? um and going like, whoa, look at who I am. I am leveling up. Look at where I've been and where I am now. Instead of look at where I've been and what terrible stuff does that mean about me that I was with that person that treated me that way. Like, no, 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 right? Um, and there was another person, a different person that I saw who, similar theme, again, this stuff themes, who is looking back on these two relationships and noting like, ooh, these similarities. I went through it once. I thought I learned. And then I went through a very similar thing in that second dynamic. And when I think about it that way, it's making me not feel good about that. Like, I've done something wrong. And it's again shifting into, you just transformed, and she had this phoenix rising situation. And as soon as I was walking out to the lobby to get her, I was getting from spirit celebration energy, celebration, celebration. And sure enough, the energy of what she brought forward to the table in that conversation was largely like, ooh, you just went through a major transformation and you're on the other side of that. So when I think about this one energy of like, ooh, we're in the middle of the budding stage and the beginning of the blossom, this person came in and like, she's fully blossomed when it comes to this particular thing, right? Like, whoop, and I'm like, ooh, look at you, you're on the other side of this, and here's how we can tell. And we're having these beautiful conversations and recognition of like, wow, this internal sense of peace that you have, these things are hitting differently, life is transforming, like, amazing transformation processes. And yet still there was a little bit of dipping in and certain parts, certain pockets of the session of that energy of like, ooh, can you feel that shift when you talk about it that way? Can you feel how that dips down a little bit when you are dipping into like some self blame and some, I made a misstep. How did I not recognize that to avoid it from happening the second time again when that second relationship had some similar patternings, right? And then I got this phrase kind of channeled through from spirit that was, in the darkest night I'm the most able to see my light. And that is going to happen for me just long enough that it needs to, for me to be able to see that light. And once it starts to flicker brighter and brighter, then it can completely turn into full light, 100% light. I don't need the darkness anymore. I have discovered that light. And now that I'm in this place, what magnetizes to me can be another completely bright light, right? And that is no longer going to wash out my ability to discover and see my own worthiness. I'm coming to the table with a full cup, baby, right? And I think I said something at the very beginning of this about a guiding light. Boom, there you go, right? In those, this is the dark night of the soul type of energy, but in those relationship dynamics, in the relationships that we have where we can look back and go, why was I in that relationship? I don't feel good about it. I feel like I did something wrong. I feel guilty about being mistreated. Did I abandon myself? It's like, no, you were following your path every step of the way. And when there are pockets of darkness around us, that doesn't mean you are out of alignment. Karmic relationships, and I did a little video on this too, so I'm glad I'm coming back about it to talk about it in a different kind of way, or like elaborating on it. Karmic relationships aren't mistakes. I think that's inherently why the word karma is within it. Like those are things that are meant to be happening for us. Because I think I hear channelers talking a lot about like, oh, this karmic or this karmic or this karmic relationship, and those are there to serve us. It's a part of the soul journey and the path. It is, those are sacred. All these relationships also have like something in it for us. I guess maybe I shouldn't say that relationship is sacred, because I definitely don't want to glorify toxicity in relationships or say anything like that or minimize the trauma. I solely want to pull into the higher level realm of the spiritual perspective and energy around honoring every step along the path of your journey, including those moments where you felt more out of alignment, because that's a feedback loop. And when you're in a deeper level of alignment, that's how you can see when you were feeling out of alignment. And so there's just gifts and beauty in all of it, every piece of the journey, all of these different pockets. Side note, I use that blossoming flower thing. I had like rhymes coming through and I was feeling so silly. There was a piece about the entangled, quantum entanglement, Tangled, the movie Tangled with Rapunzel. And I said, you know, that singing, as I was using this analogy for her about understanding like you're in this transformation zone and you need to allow yourself to be able to have a little bit of the confusion as the unfolding is still underway, and trusting the process. You are still in the blossoming. Yeah, your blossoming is beautiful. It's not fully done yet. And can we trust that things are going to feel different, look differently? When that fully happens. I use this analogy from Tangled. I said, you know, that flower that they find and it glows and they sing to it and it has this magic healing energy. I said, this is you. You're that flower. And when you are fully, you're not even realizing exactly what that is or that energy, but when you're in full blossom like that, you're going to know, like, you know who you are and what you are. And, um, like you'll just look around with that magic, I said magic flower singing power or something like that. It was the goofiest thing.